Hello, everyone, and welcome to the KBL Season 3 Power Rankings. I'm here with LandTurtle and DJColdCut.
I'm very excited to be here.
What's up, guys? Can't wait to get this over with.
Yeah, we've been working on this for like almost a week, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to jump right into the 24th team of King Nothing. So his offensive synergy is a 1 out of 5 because he doesn't really have too many. Well, he has offense, but they don't synergize well, and his strongest mon offensively is like Terrakion, even then. And the defensive synergy isn't really much better, especially considering that he has a Snom on his team. And an Aurorus, which he didn't bother covering up its weaknesses much at all. Hazards are pretty decent. He has access to rocks and webs and T-spikes, and most of his setters are pretty decent. His removal's pretty bad, but Empoleon isn't the worst remover. Utility is also not very good, considering that he doesn't have too many taunt users, very little pivoting options. He has a lot of setup on his team with Cofagrigus, Empoleon, Masquerain, Terrakion, Zangoose, Mega Sableye. A lot of bonds this team can set up. But he doesn't have very good breakers. Pretty much just maybe Terrakion and Staraptor. Overall bulk is a 3 out of 5 because he does have some bulky mons in his team, but overall his team is pretty frail, and speed tiers are also not very good. If this team didn't have Snom, it might have been ranked to number 25. So,
Okay.
yeah, moving on to team number 23, Arixis. DJColdCut.
Yep, and I'll be talking about Arixis.
Yeah.
So Arixis, we gave an overall rating of 2 out of 10. And I'll just go through some of the things that we scored their team on. So first, offensive synergy, we gave a 2 out of 5. So this is basically a rain team that only can do rain. And when you are making a rain team in the draft league format, it's actually quite easy to draft and should be relatively easy to build your team around. So while looking at his top 6 Pokemon that he drafted, they're all pretty much must-haves for a rain team. Thundurus T, Mega Swampert, Scizor, and Kingdra are all really, really great offensive Pokemon for his team, and they are perfect in a rain team setup. But once you start looking at basically every other pick, it doesn't support the rain that much, or it doesn't bring variety to his team for offensive pressure. Azumarill is a great mon, but it's completely unnecessary in the rain. Shaman, unless you're running offensive Shaman, it's not going to do much. And Toxicroak, while a pretty decent choice for a rain team because it does get dry skin, it doesn't do enough to make up for all the other Mon's weaknesses when it comes to offense and offensive synergy. We are grading Arixis' team really tough because we have seen a good rain team in a 26-person draft just in the prior season, and this is clearly not it. Defensive synergy, we also gave a 1 out of 5. He has really no walls other than Shaman. Spiritomb, I think most people would agree, is kind of good at nothing. and isn't even that great of a wall. So basically, if the only thing that you're relying on is defensive scissor or a shaman, you're gonna really struggle against most teams, especially when a team gets to have a whole week to prepare for an exclusive rain team. Hazards, we gave a 1 out of 3 because his main setter is Armaldo, because Mega Swampert will rarely, if ever, actually bring stealth rocks. So the only type of hazards he has are stealth rocks. No webs, no spikes, no toxic spikes. I believe. If I'm wrong about Armaldo having spikes.
It just gets rocks.
Removal, just gets rocks with it.
Yeah.
Removal is a 2 out of 3, solid. Pelipper, Thunder's Key, Scizor, Mr. Rhyme, Armaldo, all can bring defog or rapid spin. Generally, I think most of the time he'll probably be running defog on Pelipper or rapid spin on Mr. Rhyme and Armaldo, because you do not want to run defog on Thunder's T or Scizor. It's a waste of a move slot. Utility, he has Pokemon that can hit hard, and he doesn't have much support around that. Scizor has knockoff. Azumarill can bring like an interesting Sap Sipper set sometimes. Shaman can bring Leech Seed, but other than that, there's not much utility of the rest of the team. Setup is very good. Bulk Up, Swampert, Nasty Plot, Thunderous T, Swords Dance, Scizor, Belly Drum, Azumarill, Dragon Dance, Kingdra, even Swords Dance, Shaman, Swords Dance, or Nasty Plot, Toxicroak, Calm Mind, Spiritomb are all pretty viable setup options that he can have to put pressure on teams. Breakers are also good because you can't really get too mad when you see Swampert, Thunderous T, Scizor, Azumarill, and even a Life Orb Kingdra or Specs Kingdra. Those are all pretty scary threats to try to defend, but because they're all kind of samey, especially Swampert and Azumarill, they can be pretty easy to build around, but he does have some solid breakers. Overall bulk, we gave a 2 out of 5 because, like I said before, yes, you can run bulky Shaman. You could possibly run a bulky Pelipper and a bulky Scizor, but that's about it. Not much is going to be a great defensive pivot that you're going to rely on every week other than Shaman. Speed tiers are pretty bad. You have your high speed with your Mega Swampert and your Kingdra in the rain, but outside of the rain, this team's speed is absolutely garbage, with Thunderous being his only moderately fast mon, and then nothing else. Oh, and Shaman, but then nothing else doing much outside of the rain. So the main thing is you would maybe look at this team and say it's way better than King Nothing's team, but because it's a rain team and rain teams should be really easy to build, this team is a major disappointment. Up next is number 22.
Woo! All right, so for Mana's team, we've got a lot of like good mons, but some of them don't really work together well. So Mega Scizor and Nidoking are amazing together, and then Slowking is great, but some of the problems where some of these mons have repeat roles. So you have a slow Psychic type in Slowking, but then you have another slow Psychic type in Hatterene. You have a slow Dragon type in Druddigon, which is really good for the team, but you also have another slow Dragon type in Drampa. So you have a lot of repeat roles on the team. Libani was probably a very early pick. And the team kind of overall struggles with dealing with bulk or dealing with hard-hitting mons. So for offensive synergy, it's kind of like Nidoking, Raikou. It's there, but it's not amazing. It's not stellar. Defensive-wise, this team really relies on Slowking to be the defensive wall with like Scizor being moderately bulky, or having to run bulk just to live other hits to help out. And I mean, I guess one of the bulky dragons like Drodagon or Drampa. Hazard wise, the team isn't super great, but it's also not bad. He does have T Spike support with Nidoking, but you don't really want to run that. You do have web support with Leavanny, but Leavanny's not that good. It feels like it would hurt to bring it because you already have a bug type that's 4 times weak to fire, so you're putting unnecessary pressure on either Slowking or say Drampa / Drodagon to deal with fire types. And then you have rocks with Drodagon, and I think that's all as far as setters go. So you're not going to be running too many hazards on this team, but you do have variety. Removal wise, it's a bit better. Hitmontop is an amazing spinner. Gets it off for free quite a lot. Hatterene is a good way to dissuade hazards in general. And Scizor Mega can run defog if you're going to be running it bulky more often. Speaking of the overall
can also.
Right. Speaking of the overall bulk, it's mostly Mega Scizor, Slowking, and then one of the dragons. It's not too bulky in general for the rest of the team. Hitmontop can be also quite bulky, but besides that, it's more of a frail attackers plus some bulky mons, and some of them run repeat types. So again, I don't know if you're going to be wanting to bring Drodagon and Drampa to the same match or Hatterene and Slowking together too often. Speed tier wise, it's not great. Webs do help, but you have a Raikou, and I think that's it for above base 100 speed tiers. You have a couple at base 100, but everything else is slow or way slower, like Drampa, Drodagon, Raikou, Slowking. You can run Trick Room, but you could have gotten better mods to abuse Trick Room instead of these. Breaking wise, you do have some breakers, but again, they're kind of similar. You have Nidoking as your main breaker, but then you have the Drodagon, Drampa. So and then Entei as well helps a lot. As far as it goes, the team, it's okay, but it also feels like there are a lot of mons that you got repeatedly for seemingly not many reasons. Like Drodagon and Drampa don't truly fit together, like I've said, or Hatterene and Slowking don't fit together as well, and Scizor and Leavanny don't fit together. So there's a lot of mons that get in each other's way more than help each other. So that's why the synergy is ranked kind of low here. And overall, we gave it a 19.5 out of 41. So it's not bad by any means, but the team could have been better.
Okay. So moving on to Gage at number 21. So we gave his offensive synergy a 2.5 out of 5 because most of his offensive mons work really well under Trick Room, like I guess Snorlax, Takataka, Ampharos, Marowak, but he doesn't have a reliable Trick Room setter. And outside of Trick Room, he pretty much just has like Zarude, Lycanroc, Dusk. I guess Vish is a little bit too fast for Trick Room, but it's also usually going to be Scarf. It's pretty. I guess it works with his faster offense. He just doesn't have enough offense that works outside of Trick Room, and the ones that work under Trick Room, they aren't going to be able to function without a reliable Trick Room setter. The defensive synergy is a 1.5 out of 5 because most of this team's defensive backbone is pretty much Gliscor, maybe Klefki, or Snorlax, Zarude, I guess. But most of them, aside from Gliscor, aren't very reliable as bulky pivots, and there just isn't much that's really like tying the defense together. So hazards are 3 out of 3 because he has solid setters and he has Spike Stack and Klefki, which is a pretty reliable hazard setter with spikes, and Gliscor, Stakataka, Lycanroc, they can all set rocks somewhat reliably. Removal's a 1 out of 3 because Only Klefki gets defog on this team, and Flyscore as well, but Flyscore probably won't want to run defog, and Klefki can, but what's the point of that if he's just going to be hazard stacking? So utility is a 2.5 out of 5 because he has screeds with Klefki, he's got taunt with Zarud and Glyphscore, and he has a decent amount of momentum, but he probably could have used something else that could kind of come in and just pivot out. His setup is a 3 out of 5 because it's decent, it's not great. Again, most of his setup would be even better under Trick Room, but all he has for that is Slowbro and Stakataka, and Stakataka usually just sets Trick Room for itself, and Slowbro is not very reliable as a Trick Room setter, so. And the same goes for Breakers, but he does have some Breakers that could work outside of Trick Room, like Marowak Alola, maybe Mega Ampharos. Overall bulk is also, it's decent, it's not good, it's not bad. The team is somewhat bulky with Zarud, Klefki, Snorlax, Slowbro, Stakataka, I guess. The bulk is there, it's just the synergies, it's really not. And speed tiers are really bad considering that everything is, I guess, was built for use under Trick Room, but no solid Trick Room setter, and the only mon over 100 speed is Lycan Rock Dusk. And yeah, Lycan Rock Dusk. And Zarud, yeah. So yeah, that's why overall we have as a 20.5 out of 41, and this team has a 3 out of 10 in rating. So, yeah. Moving on to number 20.
Okay, so we got Jabril. So I would say in many ways this team is a bit of a step up from the ones that we've seen so far. With really strong offensive pressure, and that's going to help carry this team and take it farther than it deserves. So if we look at it, we gave the offensive synergy a 4 out of 5. With Pokemon like Mega Diancie, Dragonite, Chandelure, Mammothine, even Meloetta and KBL, that's going to be putting a lot of pressure on the other team. Chandelure, Mammothine, Dragonite, and Mega Diancie have great synergy with each other. Mega Diancie is just huge at being able to run physical and special now, especially with the DLC that we're allowing for that Diancie can be running a Moonblast or Play Rough. So it's going to be really hard to prep for that. Defensive synergy, we gave a 1 out of 5. For the most part, the defensive core is going to be Skarmory, Rotom, and Carkol. And that can be a bit problematic. Skarmory and especially Rotom are going to be carrying a lot of the defensive weight for this team, and Rotom does not have reliable recovery. And Skarmory is amazing, and it's going to put in a lot of work. But if someone can exploit Skarmory, things will be really tough on the defensive end. Hazard setting, I mean, again, he's got Skarmory and Carkol, two of the best hazard setters in the game. Mammothine and Diancie can also run hazards with Stealth Rocks. So he's got plenty of options for setting up hazards removal. We gave it 2 out of 3. Mega Diancie in itself will deter hazards from being set. Skarmory's running defog, Dragonite's running defog, Rotom is a great defogger, Carkol can run rapid spin, but there's going to be times where it's probably going to feel like Rotom or Carkol is going to be brought in to be the main hazard removal option, and they can be a bit inconsistent, especially if they've been weakened prior to having to try to remove the hazards. Setup, we gave a 3 out of 5. Dragonite, one of the best setup mons in the game. Its ability is amazing, allowing it to set up. Drapeon's a great setup option. Rotom with Nasty Plot. Meloetto, Calm Mind, Mega Diancie can set up as well. Pretty good options, but in Chandelure running Calm Mind, but most of the time you're going to want them to be doing other things other than just trying to set up on you the whole time. Either serving a defensive role or just being a breaker instead. And that's why we gave his breakers a 4 out of 5, because by themselves, like I've said many times, they're fantastic breakers. Like Mamoswine and Chandelure, and Ditto does a great job of counter sweeping other teams. If they try to set up on you, Ditto will just come in with the classic Choice Scarf set and just break the other team. Overall bulk, we gave it 2 out of 5 because, again, when you're relying on Skarmory, Carkol, and Rotom for your defense, it's going to be pretty rough. Drapion can be run physical sometimes, but it generally does a much better job offensively or as a hazard setter, suicide lead. Speed tiers are 1 out of 5. The fastest Mon is Mega Diancie, and it can't even run Scarf, which can be a major problem. Meloetto Pirouette form is a very unreliable form of speed control, and many times it won't even be able to get off its whatever its voice move is and be able to take advantage of its speed in that other form. Ditto is probably its saving grace in preventing as a speed control option. And Keldeo is pretty fast itself, but there's huge gaps between speed and there's very low high-end speed. So overall, we gave it a 21 out of 41. It's definitely a decent team, but as you'll see as we move down this list, the teams that are as we move down just are much better comprised and well put together. This team is fun to use, but when Carkol is like one of your main defensive pivots, it's going to be an issue.
Rev, I could like finish my talk, go take a shower, be back, and still have enough time to like formulate my thoughts for my next one. It's crazy. All right, so the next the next team we're doing is Rhydon's team. So to start, Tapu Bulu and Mega Zam together felt like this team was going to be broken completely, but then it kind of fell off just a tad here or there. It's still a pretty good team. Like a lot of these teams are actually really solid. It's going to come down to coaches, see who's actually going to utilize their team the best. But it's still a pretty good team. So offensive synergy wise, it's Bulu and Zam for your main offensive lines. Then you have like some semi-offense with Mismag, Electivire, Magmortar. I'd say the bottom 4 of this team look pretty odd. Maybe it's just because they're all like weird Synodex mons or something to me. So maybe that's it. But it's mainly Bulu, Alakazam, and Mence that is your offensive presence. And synergy-wise, they all struggle breaking through steals. Like, Registeel is on this team, and it could kind of handle all of them. Maybe not all by itself, but you need one bulky steal to deal with this team, essentially, the main offensive force of it. Defensive-wise, it's also pretty good. Like, you have your bulky mons and Registeel, Swampert. They work together well. Licky gives them wish support, but the team vitally needs wish support because the walls on the team are quite passive, and that's kind of a problem. It kills momentum. Registeel is just the momentum killer. For hazards and removal, the team is kind of weak. Registeel and Swampert are reliable rock setters, but that's its only form of hazard setting. Just two rock setters that might not come all the time. And his only form of removal is Hitmonchan, which is okay for Rapid Spin, but it's not super great Mon-wise. And Defog Mence, which I don't really think is a viable set in general. Utility-wise, there's when we're talking about utility, we mean like U-turn, Volt Switch, like Momentum, or Taunt, or Knockoff users, or other gimmicky things Mons can get. But the team really lacks in a form of momentum U-turn wise. I don't know if there is a U-turner or a Volt Switcher here besides Electivire. So that's what the team struggles with a lot. It's basically getting momentum, finding ways of bringing in Megazam or Tapu Bulu, because I don't know if, you can't really bring Megazam in for free, and that's going to be one of your main mons to use to break stuff. Setup wise, though, the team is pretty solid. You have Bulu and Zam for setup as well. You have Iron Defense, Body Press, Registeel, which can work. Mence is its own mon with setup as well. Moxie, D-Dance can win games by itself. And other mons can run other moves, like Miss Mag gets Nasty Plot. Breakers wise, it's mostly Bulu and Megazam as breakers, and that's it. And they don't synergize well together is the problem. They're good by themselves, for sure, amazing even, but they don't really work together all too well. Overall the bulk is there on the team for sure. Registeel, Muck, Mence, Swampert, Intimidate Mence, and even like Assault Vest users and Licky Licky, but the problem is a lot of these walls are completely passive. Licky Licky and Registeel aren't really doing much, and Swampert can't do much to certain mons itself. So you're killing your own momentum by bringing in these walls, and that can hurt you in the long run. The speed tiers of the team are good, except for the gap between Alakazam Mega and Miss Magius, which is like a 45 speed tier gap of amazing blistering speed to decent okay speed. So he gave it a 3 out of 5 because everything below Miss Mag is really good speed tier wise. If you had one mon or two to maybe bridge that gap between 105 and 150, that would have been really good. And again, it's kind of like a synergy thing. Offense and defensive wise, they synergize okay, but they could have synergized a lot better. Overall, the team is somewhat lackluster, but still pretty solid. And that's why we gave it a 22.5 out of 41. And I think that's all. I'll go take my shower, be back with 10 minutes to spare still.
Okay, we gotta go super fast for that.
Yeah, we don't care about Roland. He is whatever. He's not even going to watch the tournament, right?
Yeah, he's probably not. This is the worst team. Ignore the previous.
We also hate Roland.
Yeah.
6 slots.
Yeah, this is a real 24 tiers team. We're just trying to surprise him.
Yeah. So the offensive synergy is a 3 out of 5. He does have a solid Sun core, at least. And the mons outside of Sun work pretty well. But it's only decent because the Sun core and the rest of his team don't really work well together at all. If anything, the rest of his mons don't appreciate Sun boosted fire hits, and yeah, it just doesn't work. And especially with like Mega Sharpedo there, I mean, they can't. Its water stab is being weakened, and just overall, it's not a bad team in terms of offensive synergy, but he probably could have either grabbed a Mega that worked better, or he could have maybe grabbed better mons that would work well, or don't really mind the Sun being up. So defensive synergy is a 2 out of 5 because, again, a lot of this team is pretty weak to fire, and it's a Sun team. On top of that, Clefable and Jirachi have pretty good synergy, but after that it kind of falls off. His bulky pivots are not bulky enough to like totally hold the team down. Like, it could probably have used something a little bit more solid than Clef plus Jirachi. For Hazard, he has a 3 out of 3. He has Rocks, Spikes, and T-Spikes. And all of his setters are pretty solid. So, yeah. Removal's a 1 out of 3 because his hazard removers are Thundy, Torkoal, and I think that's it. They're not bad. Well, Thunderous is a bad remover. Torkoal isn't the worst remover with boots, but if he's running boots, he's not running like Heat Rock or anything. And it's probably not the best one to have as your only hazard remover. In terms of utility, he has a decent amount of momentum. Teleport, Fable, U-turn Jirachi, and then Shark gets flip turn now. Not to mention Thundy and Darm. Like, that's pretty solid, but apart from that, he doesn't have too many taunt users. He just has Thunderous, I think. He also doesn't have very good knockoff users, or just in general, his utility is kind of lacking, and he has pretty decent momentum, which is the reason why it's a 2 at least. Setup is a 3 out of 5 because he has Clef and Jirachi can both set up pretty freely. You always have to worry about that Belly Drum Darmanitan set. Thundy has a few different ways to set up. Torkoal has Shell Smash, Goldfish gets SD, and then of course there's Growth Venusaur under the sun. It's pretty solid. And then his breakers are, well, Darm G in and of it is like in a class by itself, but apart from that, he doesn't really have too many breakers. If it wasn't for the Darm G, he probably would have had a 1 out of 5. Overall bulk is 3. His mons are pretty bulky overall, but they don't synergize, and even then he doesn't have. He's only got bulk in like small portions with Clef, Jirachi, Torkoal, Toadfish, and Tangela. With only Clef and Jirachi being his really reliable walls out of all of those. But his speed tiers are nearly perfect with Mega Shark, taking him easily over the 110 mark, and then it goes to Rachi, or obviously Doug Trio, being like his fastest mon if Shark doesn't get the speed boost or has to switch. They're solid. Our overall score is 23 out of 41, and we gave this team a 4 out of 10. But really, it's probably a 1 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, just to see the beauty of Jirachi.
Why are we even here talking to him?
Yeah.
Like, yo.
Okay, so moving on.
Yep. To number 17 and Sir Outback.
Yeah, this is a real man team, not like a freak.
Yeah, this is a way better team.
Yeah.
Even though it has the same rating as Rolanti's team, but a way better team. Even though it's the exact same, but way better.
Yeah.
So the thing about Sir Outback, his team is actually really impressive, both offensively and defensively. But it's kind of in the margins where it fails. You look at it at a glance and it seems amazing, but when you start dissecting it, it gets a bit weaker. So offensive synergy. He's got Tapu Koko, Mega Mawile, Noivern, Alolan Raichu, and Golisopod, which are all great, and Pangoro, which are all great offensive threats. A little ground weak offensively, but they do so much damage, and they have great. They can put on great pressure with the team, and then you combine that with the defensive synergy of a disgusting defensive core of Tangrowth, Alola Mola, Chansey, and Dewblade. It's just a really tough team to break, especially when the defensive synergy, the defensive core really helps out the offensive core. Regenerator is a amazing and terrible ability that should never have existed. And Chansey is cancer, and I hate it, but it's a fantastic mon, and it can put in a lot of work, especially to help support the team with wish passing. Hazards, 1 out of 3. His hazard setters consist of Piloswine and Mega Mawile. and Mega Mawile is never going to be running weapons. So, and Chansey will throw out Stealth Rocks as well, but there's probably going to be many times where he'll choose to forego Stealth Rocks for another more utility move. Removal is a 1 out of 3. His defoggers are Tapu Koko, Noivern, and that's it. Very rarely does anyone actually want to run defog on Tapu Koko or Noivern. So he's going to have to sacrifice a strong pivoting move or a strong attacking move if he wants to be running defog at any point, which was pretty rough for his team because passive damage might be rough if he doesn't bring Chansey. Utility. So basically, you want with a team with Mega Mawile, you want to switch as much as possible with pivoting. And so he has Tapu Koko, one of the best pivots in the game. Alolan Raichu, Noivern's a great pivot. Chansey with teleport. So he has just enough pivots to make Mega Mawile truly dangerous. And he does have 2 great wish passes, but moves like knockoff. He's got. Does Pangoro get knocked off?
It does.
It does.
Yeah.
So he has also decent knockoff users as well. So his utility is pretty good. And especially with a mon like Tapu Koko, because it can literally do anything, he's going to be able to create some pretty interesting sets. Setup is a 2 out of 5. I think this is one of the weaker parts of his team. Mons that can be set up on his team are generally just better as breakers. I would say the only truly great setup Mon he has might be Duplay, because it can take some hits and set up a sword stance, or Alolan Raichu because it'll be super fast and be able to throw a Calm Mind. Does it get Nasty Plot? It does get Nasty Plot. A Nasty Plot. Breakers, this is where the team shines. Mega Mawile itself is a fantastic breaker. You combine that with Golisopod and Pangoro and its Choice Specs Noivern, and things get really, really dangerous. Overall, bulk is a 4 out of 5. Tangrowth, Alola, Mola, Chansey, that's all I need to say. The fantastic core, it's disgusting and I hate it. Speed tiers. This is probably one of the worst speed team I've ever seen in my life. Because I remember talking with Coded and LandTurtle about this team. I'm like, oh, there's so many great things. It's amazing. Why is it 17? This is one of its biggest reasons. The hazards, the removal in the setup, and the speed. There's a gap from 110 to 58. Alola Mola does have base 65 speed, but you will never, ever, ever, ever run speed on this thing. So, again, is absolutely insane. Overall, we gave it a 24 out of 41, about a 5 out of 10. It's a good team. The speed tiers are whack. I don't even know if it can be fixed. I almost like the fact that he didn't even try to fix it, but it's going to be fun to team build against this team because the speed tiers are so bad. Up next,
I was looking at very patriotic photos of America.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah, I'm wearing my PR shirt. It says MAGA on it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so for Randall's team, we have actually I'm building for this team this week, I think. Anyways, this team's pretty solid. It's definitely good. There's a lot of good offensive synergy here with Kartana, possibly Arcanine, Manectric, Duraludon. Hitmonlee, and Hoopa Unbound. Hoopa Unbound is kind of like a sleeper threat there all the way at the bottom of the team, but it can't be forgotten. Defensive wise, this team's pretty solid with Arcanine and Suicune there for sure. Palossand also helps, and Alcremie. Golbat is incredibly fat and bulky, and it's also diagonal. It's not bad. It's not great. The bulk is better than the synergy though of it all, as there's a lot of very bulky mons on the team, but they don't synergize perfectly or anything. And I'd say like some of them kind of lose to weird things like Kartana and Duraludon, both your steel types, are very weak, special defensively. And everyone's going to be running U-turn just to deal with Hoopa Unbound, which could be quite annoying for you. Hazard-wise, it's Palossand and Duraludon for your rockers, and that's it. Removal-wise, you have Golbat, Hitmonlee, Cryogonal, and Kartana, which isn't terrible, but Golbat can't run heavy duty boots. Kartana is not a good defogger. You're not running defog on that thing ever. Cryogonal is actually kind of solid, but it's also one of the only solid ones really. And Hitmonlee is okay. Utility wise, the team kind of lacks in Volt Turn. It's only Manectric and Golbat, I'm pretty sure, that can run momentum moves. And there's not many knockoff users or, say, taunt users here. Setup-wise, setup-wise is pretty solid. You know, you got your Kartana, you got your Scissors, you know. You got Hitmonlee's really solid in general. Hoopa probably runs some kind of setup. Who knows what now? But you have setup on the team. Overall bulk, like I've said earlier, the team is pretty bulky. It just doesn't synergize amazingly. You know, you have two steel types, but they both lose to special hits in general. So it's kind of odd, I guess I'd say. Speed tier wise, it's good. There's nothing bad about it. It's not amazing, I guess. You have Manectric, and then it goes down to Kartana, which is, it's not terrible, it's not amazing. So for the team, there's a lot of like good things about it, but I guess it could have been better. Like Alcremie's good, but you probably could have gotten something better round 5, maybe a better fairy. Palossand's good, but maybe you could have gotten something better round 4. So overall, there's a lot of good mons on the team, but some of them don't make it great. It just makes it good, essentially. So that's why we gave it an overall score of 24 out of 41 and a rating of 6, like kind of overall impression score. It's a good team.
Okay, so moving on to Vaxo.
Oh, look at this guy. Look at this guy. How American is he? Oh, he's so American. He's from Nepal.
He's the most American out of us all.
All right, that's not entirely true on here, but you know, go off.
He's literally George Washington.
Later.
Okay, so his offensive synergy, it's okay. He's got Zerora, Tapu Lele, Blacephalon, sometimes Araquanid, sometimes Tentacruels, Crafties, Zygarde 10%, and Braviary. It's the offensive synergy is decent, but the team doesn't really support Zerora, Tapu Lele very well. Well, offensively, which is why it has a 3 out of 5, though he does have a lot of good offensive threats that do kind of work. But especially defensively, it really doesn't support them. At least synergy-wise. In terms of hazards, he has just rocks, webs, spike. Yeah, his hazards are 3 out of 3, mostly because he has pretty much every hazard in the game, and all of his setters are solid. His removal is 2 out of 3 because Fortress and Tentacruel are both very solid removers. Utility is a 1 out of 5 because he really doesn't have much utility. He pretty much just has maybe Taunt Blacephalon, Whirlwind to Powdon. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, and he barely has any momentum apart from Zorora, Fortress, and yeah, that's it. So setup is 4 out of 5 because almost every mon on his team can set up. Zorora, Lele, Blacephalon, Hippowdon can curse for what, like, if you really wanted it to. Scrafty, Zygarde 10, Braviary. They're all very solid setup ones. And his breaking's a 3 out of 5 because his breakers are pretty decent. They aren't really phenomenal at breaking, and most of them they're more cleaners than breakers. Araquanid is probably his best breaker, and maybe like Specs Blacephalon or something. And so his overall bulk is a 3 out of 5 because overall this team it's kind of bulky. He doesn't have much dedicated bulk apart from maybe Hippowdon. Most of his walls are they don't have reliable recovery, and he doesn't have Wish Pass, apart from like Hippowdon having Slack Off. So yeah, they're decent, not good, not bad. Fortress and Tentacruel are pretty solid. Speed tiers 4 out of 5. This team has pretty insane speed tiers going from Zorora to I think Blacephalon? No, it goes from Zorora to Zygarde 10, then Blacephalon, and then yeah, there aren't very many gaps. So we gave this team an overall score of 25 out of 41, and our overall impression of the team was more of a 5 out of 10. So yeah, solid team, but it just lacks synergy. Has very little synergy. It kind of fell off after Zorora and Lele. So, moving on.
Okay, so at 14, we have Smiley's team. With Smiley's team, generally very, 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 very strong. With a great mon that I always like to use in Rillaboom, with a good fire water core to kind of offensive and defensive fire water core to go with it, in Incineroar and Inteleon. Offensive synergy, we gave it a 4 out of 5. You look at Rillaboom and you pair it with Halucha, and that itself is always a great option. You can also have Blastoise using the new Train Pulse ability, and Zygarde is always a scary threat offensively. Defensive synergy wise, we gave it a 3 out of 5. Aromatisse and Avalanche are great value defensive mons, and Mega Aggron is fantastic, and he definitely needed a wish mon to support it, but they are not the best at what they do. That's why they're at lower tiers. So people are going to find ways to be able to exploit the defensive core of Aromatisse, Avalugg, Dusknoir, and Mega Aggron. Part of that problem was also the fact that Runerigus, that's how I'm going to say it this time. I'll say it differently next time. And Dusknoir kind of served the same role as defensive pivots. And he probably would have done better with a different wall, probably preferably like a normal type wall. Hazards, we gave a 1.5 out of 3 because. Oh, and also defensively, Incineroar is a great defensive pivot as well. Hazards, we gave it a 1.5 out of 5 because Rune is a great hazard mon. Mega Aggron is great. And does Avalugg get Stealth Rocks? I can't remember.
Doesn't.
No, okay. But So he has kind of limited options for hazards, but the hazard setters themselves are very good.
I'm a fucking
So
crew
they're pretty reliable. And then in removal, also kind of the same way. Blastoise is and Avalugg are pretty good removal options, and they're consistent in their ability to get off a rapid spin. It is concerning that his only defogger is Hawlucha. So if someone else has a ghost type, he might not be able to remove consistently or effectively. Utility, a 3 out of 5. Rillaboom gets U-turn, Incineroar gets U-turn, Aromatisse gets Wish to support Mega Aggron. Hawlucha gets U-turn. Blastoise. Does Blastoise get flip turn now?
It does.
Yeah, so he has pretty decent pivots. He has a Wish Passer. He has Intimidate and Knockoff User and Incineroar. So he has some pretty decent options. And Dusknoir, being able to finally run Poltergeist, it might be threatening enough for some people to be forced to not run items on certain Pokemon. Setup is a 4 out of 5. This is where his team shines more so. Rillaboom is absolutely terrifying in grassy terrain with Sword Stance. Incineroar can set up in different ways, whether it be Nasty Plot or what's that move that it gets that does damage based on all of its stats that it boosts. The stored power of the dark type. I forget what it's called. So I apologize. Zygarde is absolutely terrifying. Power Trip. Thank you. Zygarde's absolutely terrifying after a Dragon Dance, and you can go on. Hawlucha, of course, is terrifying, and Blastoise is scary under with a Shell Smash. So it's set up. It's definitely where this team shines. Its breaker's a little lacking. Really, the only true breaker on the team is going to be like a choice banded Rillaboom. And that is about it. Other mons can kind of do a breaker type of role, but just not that effectively. Zygarde's attack stat is a bit lacking, so it won't be able to hit as hard as you want it to if you're not running setup on it. Overall bulk is a 4 out of 5. He has some really thick Pokemon. Almost all of these guys, other than Inteleon and Hawlucha, can take a hit and switch in pretty reliably. So overall bulk is very high, and speed tiers are good, especially with Hawlucha being able to double its speed with Unburden. Inteleon has a great speed tier. Rillaboom doesn't even need to invest in speed to have a great speed tier because of Grassy Glide. Zygarde covers the base 90s, and Blastoise basically being able to almost always double its speed is very nice as well. Overall, we gave this team a 26 out of 41 and around a 6 out of 10.
You know what's crazy? When DJ started, I started playing Among Us, and I just finished. I got through a whole round and won. I was a crewmate, so it's kind of whatever. All right.
How long was it? How long did it talk for? Like 4 minutes?
Yeah, it was a pretty quick round. We got the imposters out pretty fast. Anyways, Rock Hands is up.
You're making me so conscious.
Yeah. Okay. Rock Hands is up. So this is a pretty solid team. I think what's weird is a lot of the Mons look like Mons I would draft 8 months ago. So maybe if he was like gone from draft for 8 months, that'd be kind of weird or suspicious,
Yeah.
So I think Lando T and Ryu are both like really good, but they kind of maybe dropped off a little bit, or Lando and Lopunny dropped off a tad, maybe. Offensive synergy wise, the team is really solid. Like Lando, Lopunny, Metagross, Moltres, Toxtricity. Not a lot of things want to take hits from those, but I'd say it's kind of weird that you have Tornadus along with LandOT and Moltres, so 3 flying types kind of might get in each other's way a bit, though LandOT isn't really running flying moves ever. Defensive synergy wise, it's it's not there as much as the team is a bit like Ice Weak. Whaleran was obviously drafted to patch that ice weakness, but I don't really think you can bring Whaleran every time you want to deal with a strong ice move. Because besides that, it's just Metagross. Metagross is good, but he can't hold it down. So, and otherwise, it's LandOT, Quagsire. I guess it's kind of weird to see both of them together, but not terrible, I guess. So it makes like Freeze Dry be a big threat. And defensive wise, it's like you have to run bulky Metagross to help yourself out a lot, but that also might get in the way of Mew because of psychic types. And the team, it doesn't have a dark type, but it does have 2 normal types, so that can help deal with the ghost. That'll probably come to deal with Mew and Metagross. But then it's like, dark types can come for free against this team, except for Florgist. Hazards and removal wise, Mew itself is like free for hazards, whatever you want to run. But that's also kind of it as far as it goes, besides say Metagross and LandOT. Really good, but just over reliance on Mew for any diversity of hazards, essentially. So for any diversity, you'd need Mew. Setup wise, removal. LandOT, again, Mew kind of thrusting it in that role. Florges, and I guess technically you could do Boots, Moltres, or Tornadus as well. Utility wise, there's Mew is literally utility the Mon. Like utility is just basically on Mew for this team, which is fine. It works. You do also have U-turn from Lando, Lopunny, as well as a couple others like Tornadus and Volt Switch with Toxtricity. But again, it's mostly Mew for utility on this team. You do get Prankster Tailwind with Tornadus though, which is helpful. Setup wise, there's a lot. I mean, LandOT can do double dance, Mew again, anything. Lopunny can run Power Punch, but agility sets. Tornadus now gets Nasty Plot. Toxtricity gets a voice spray or noise spray or whatever that spray is called. Throat spray, whatever. Shut up. I don't like that item. And Ursaring is too good. Breakers, there's a lot. I mean, LandOT is kind of a breaker as well. Metagross is a breaker. Moltres breaks. Tornadus can break. Toxtricity is difficult for a lot of teams to handle and deal with. And Ursaring kind of weird on a team with Lopunny, but if you don't prep for Ursaring, some Mon is going to get slapped completely by Guts Facade with Sword Stance. And also the best setup Mon of all time is Belly Drum Whaleran, of course. Overall bulk, it's pretty solid. I'd say the overall bulk of the team is better than the defensive synergy of it, as you do have some bulky Mons. But it's nothing amazing. You might have to thrust Mew into that defensive role more often than you might want to patch up the team a bit. And it's still a bit like Ice Week or Dark Week, essentially, / like Ghost Week. So there's a couple things the team does have to deal with to handle. Edgequake kind of goes hard against this team a bit, but LandOT can also help out with that. And the speed tiers are actually just really solid. I realize Torn might look weird on this team being the 3rd flying type, but it patches up a important speed tier at that base 110-ish range. So that's where it fits in. And basically, speed tiers, there's nothing to complain about. Like Lopunny to Tornadus to Mew is really good. It's just like it's not at that amazing level of there's nothing this team can't do, though. It just is weird. The Mons drafted feel like they may have been better before, and some of them don't work amazing together. So the 3 flying types is odd. 2 ground with 2 waters like Quagsire kind of just fitting there is weird. Ursaring Lopunny is a bit odd. So there's a lot of odd picks, but the team itself can work, and it is a good team for sure. So just gonna see where this takes the coach. It's a good team. That's why we gave it a 28 out of 41 overall on the score system, and like personal impression wise, a 6 out of 10. Now I'm gonna start up my game of Among Us again. I'll probably get 3 games in. Never get faster.
So moving on to Rafi. He has very strong bulk and strong offensive synergy. And defensive synergy. But like, so his offensive synergy is Lando, Victini, maybe Grimmsnarl, Mienshao, Electros. It's very strong, but it doesn't have the best synergy. Like, individually it'll be difficult to prep for, but they don't really support each other that well. But the defensive synergy is a 5 out of 5 because Megavinu, Milotic, Bronzong is just going to be a nightmare to break through, paired with maybe Electros or even like screens from like Grimmsnarl. That's going to be.
Yeah, you can't look at this.
Yeah. So his hazards are 1 out of 3 because he only has like 3 setters: Lando, Bronzong, and I guess Gabite. But there's no reason for Gabite 400 to even be on this team to begin with. Removal is kind of the same thing. He just has Articuno and Landorus, which I don't think he wants to waste his slot for defog on Landorus, and I don't think he wants to bring Articuno to like every game to remove hazards. Utility has a 4 out of 5. He has quite a bit of utility on this team. Leech Seed on Venusaur, he has Taunt and Screens on Grimmsnarl. Electros forms a decent Volt Turn core with like Victini, Lando. Milotic has Flip Turn now. He's got good momentum and solid utility options, just in terms of like Taunt and knockoff users. Well, actually, maybe he doesn't have very many knockoff users, but good taunt users, a good momentum, so hence 4 out of 5. So his setup is a 2.5 out of 5 because he does have some mons that can set up, like Lando, Grimmsnarl, and maybe like an Iron Defense Bronzong set. Mienshao, I think, as well. But that's all he has, and Lando's more of a breaker. Grimmsnarl can set up somewhat well, but I think on this team it's likely just going to be coming as like more of a bulky mon. And well, Mienshao again is just more of like a fast cleaner. It's not really it's not really very good with like setup. Though Bronzong wouldn't be bad with like Iron Defense Value Press. So that's why it's a 2 out of 5. It's not bad, it's not the worst. Slightly below average. Breaking is a 4 out of 5 because he does have phenomenal breakers on this team. Sheer Force, Landorus, Victini, maybe like Band Grimmsnarl, but that's just crazy breaking power. It's V-Crate plus like Sheer Force Earth powers and things like that. Very solid. Overall bulk is a 5 out of 5. Again, Mega Venusaur, Milotic, Bronzong. And nothing on the team is really that frail, apart from Haunter and Gabite. Maybe Mienshao as well. So yeah, hence why this team is, I think, the first 5 out of 5 in overall bulk we've seen so far. And speed tiers are, again, kind of below average. Fastest one being Lando High. And from there, it's one of the slower teams, but it's not as bad as some of the other teams from before this. Overall score was a 28 out of 41 and rating 7 out of 10. Again, this team is very good defensively and has great breakers. It's just the offensive synergy, hazard, and removal kind of let it down a little bit. So, moving on to 11.
Okay. Our 11 is Detective Butters. So In our notes, it says good offensive synergy, good defensive synergy. The defensive synergy is sort of lacking, but it isn't too bad. It does get Wish support with Sylveon, which is huge. And it only has one Sand Abuser, and so we'll get into this a bit more. So offensive synergy, we gave a 4 out of 5. With a core of Excadrill, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Vikavolt, Mega Sceptile, Necrozma, and Salazzle. That's a really strong and really impressive core, and even Indeedee can be quite threatening with expanding force. With Excadrill, you have Vikavolt that can cover it very well defensively, and Necrozma, which can just basically switch into anything and be a threat. And Sceptile also is great with its ground resist. Urshifu Rapid Strike, you have mons like Vikavolt, which also cover it perfectly, and Mega Sceptile, which helps it break things like bulky waters that it would normally not be able to break. So those are two great mons to pair with Urshifu. Defensive synergy, we gave it 3 out of 5. So generally his defense is going to be some sort of combination of Girder, Gigalith, or Jigalith, sorry, gotta say it right for Wolfie, Sylveon, and Vikavolt. While Sylveon and Gigalith are going to be your two main defensive options every time, there's going to be many times where you're not going to want to run defensive Vikavolt or defensive Necrozma. You're going to want to go more offensive. The cool thing about his team, though, is that Salazzle is basically a defensive mon as well, with its completely broken combination of Toxic, Sub, Protect. It can really help out defensively because you just go max speed, max HP, and it can do a lot of stuff. Hazard, we gave it 2 out of 3. You got Excadrill, you got Gigalith, and you got Vikavolt, which is the best web setter in the game. It can just always get off webs consistently and can reset it consistently as well because it's just so bulky compared to most of the other web setters. So Gigalith is going to be wanting is going to be able to run and throw up rocks almost every time. So very consistent hazard setters, even though he doesn't have that many. Necrozma can also set up rocks, but with Gigalith, you definitely can rely on that. Removal, he's got Girder and Drifblim and Excadrill, which is a great rapid spinner because it's so much of an offensive threat. It can normally get off a rapid spin and boost its speed quite easily. So again, not that many of them, but they are good and they're consistent. Girder is actually a pretty good default mon. Eviolite just makes it so bulky. Really, really, really good. Where this team really shines is its setup. Excadrill, Urshifu with bulk up, Calm Mind Sylveon, Dragon Dance Sceptile, Necrozma, which might be the best setup sweeper in the game with its ability and just all the different ways that it can set up and destroy you. Salazzle can also run Nasty Plot. Drifblim with Unburden can actually be quite scary if you don't prep for it. So he has a lot of different ways and pretty effective ways to set up and hurt you pretty hard. Breakers, his main breakers are basically Urshifu and Vikavolt sometimes. The problem with Vikavolt is it doesn't have that many coverage options. So there are definitely Pokemon that can completely wall it. Any especially defensive threat that isn't weak to Vikavolt can beat it 1v1. Urshifu is great at breaking with Rapid Strike, but it does make it incredibly vulnerable to Rocky Helmet. Exadrill can also break, and Sceptile can break as well, but they normally do better as some sort of setup. Overall book, we gave 2.5 out of 5 because, again, there's very few purely defensive pivots that can come in and take a hit and heal themselves back up. But Sylveon definitely covers for a lot of that weakness. Speed tiers are 5 out of 5. Mega Sceptile is fantastic. Having Salazzle, being able to run Excadrill and Sand. He basically covers his high end really well and his mid tiers very well with Urshifu and Necrozma. And even Drifblim and Indeedee being able to run 2 different speeds is pretty awesome. Overall, we gave this team a 28.5 out of 41 and a rating of 7 out of 10. A lot of these, now that we're in the top 12, a lot of these teams are very good, and it was just we were really nitpicky about how we graded each of them.
So, moving on to LandTurtle. Yeah, Lucas.
World Lucas's team. This team's really good. Offensive synergy wise, like there's everything here. You got your Infernape, you got your Gyarados, you got Latias, even Ninetales, Alola, Scolipede, Pori Z itself is such an amazing, like underrated mon, I feel. Alright, so the team getting Veil was amazing to help out this team, as Gyarados is already an amazingly like super bulky setup mon, but now with under Veil, it's really hard to break. And even mons like Porygon Z and Renate that might struggle with setting up can easily set up now with under Veil. So that makes this team like scary on the offensive sense. The defensive synergy is also amazing with, again, Gyarados, Mega, Ferrothorn, Latias, Rhydon. Those mons are really good. Even Rotom Fan and Gaston, like the lower tier kind of picks, really help out the team defensive wise. I guess it's kind of odd that you have 2 ground types that are 4 times weak to grass. But, I mean, Ferrothorn and Latias kind of patches that up. Every weakness this team has is significantly patched up elsewhere. So that's what makes the team pretty solid. Hazard-wise, it's really good. Ferrothorn is hit spikes and rocks. Rhydon, easy rock setter. Sandslash can't set rocks. Infernape is also another rock setter. So he's got, and Scolipede, of course, like the easy toxic spike setter. So he has almost all the hazards and very reliable ways of setting it. Removal wise is a bit rougher because Latias is defogger. Rotom Fan's a good defogger, but Sandslash, I'm not a big advocate for that mod in general. I don't think it's that good, but it's actually pretty interesting that this team has Hail, like at least a Hail kind of setup or option, because it doesn't get in the team's way at all. And Sandslash can be good, maybe under Hail possibly. Who knows? I don't know. Utility wise, the team kind of struggles a bit more here. Infernape is good for U-turn and whatnot, but I believe looking around, that's it. Besides Rotom Fan for kind of Volt Switch U-turning shenanigans. And otherwise, it's some taunt users, and that's about it. The team doesn't really have it doesn't have a knockoff user besides Thorn, and I think like that's kind of it utility wise. The setup on the team is kind of ridiculous though. Obviously, under Veil setup is kind of free on this team, and he has Poor Z, Infernape, Gyarados, Latias, those mons, Scolipede as well. And Rotom Fan. The setup is amazing. It's kind of everywhere. Breakers wise, though, this team is definitely seemingly more reliant on setup to break down teams, because the only breaker in the traditional sense is Porygon Z, which is amazing by itself. But you might, gimmicky or sets like Specs, Latios, or Ninetales Alola or something like that for Infernape would have to be relied on to actually break. As Porzy is the only real breaker here. Overall bulk, like the defensive synergy is great, but the bulk of the mons aren't. You don't have the super dedicated for it. Ferrothorn's great. Rhydon is good. Gaston's good, but they both lose to grass essentially. And Laios is kind of good for bulk as well, but it's not amazing. It's more the synergy that holds it together. And lastly, the speed tiers on the team are quite solid. You do have the hail option for some speed, but it's mostly like Infernape, Latias, Ninetales. Scolipede really helps out a lot as it's a free Scarfer, and you also have other mons that can run Scarf. So the speed tiers are quite solid. I guess it does hurt that besides Scolipede, you don't have a mon that's like above base 110 essentially. But I don't really think that hurts the team too bad because this is still a pretty solid team overall. And that's why we gave it a 29 out of 41 and a rating of 7 out of 10. Again, the team's really good. Like at this point, the teams are so kind of closely rated that we got to be really nitty gritty picky with how we do it. That's all from me. Up to Coded.
Okay, so Epic Nexie's team.
Seems fat.
Yeah, the Epic Nexie has a very, very defensive team in terms of synergy and the individual one. But well, I guess we'll get to that in a second. First off, his offensive synergy is it's a little weak. He has Komodo, Crocodile, Reuniclus can be a threat. Heliolisk, Kangaskhan, Mega, and that's kind of it. A lot of his defense also kind of functions like as an offensive threat, but on this team it's likely still just they're all just going to be like running bulky sets anyway. This synergy's kind of there. It's slightly below average. But the defensive synergy is actually just really insane on this team. Celesteela, Pex, Kamo helps with that, adds to that little core. He's also got Reuniclus, Colossal to an extent. Crook can be pretty bulky. Like overall, the team synergizes extremely well, and these mons are all extremely bulky. Hazards have a 3 out of 3 because he has very solid setters, and he has rocks plus spikes on his team. Removal is more of a 1 out of 3 because his only removers are, well, his only remover is Colossal, and that probably doesn't want to come to every game, and yeah, it probably just doesn't want to come to every single game when he has all these other defensive threats that he could also bring in place of that. Utility has a 3 out of 5. He does have some utility. He's got taunt on like Komodo, Crook, and he doesn't have, well, his pivoting actually is kind of pretty bad, but he also does have good, decent knockoff users with like Crook. Uniclus can occasionally run knockoff. Sneasel, well, is obviously going to run knockoff. It's pretty solid. I mean, the utility is there. It's not amazing, but it's not the worst. Setup is 3 out of 5 because he does have pretty decent setup options. Celesteela, Komodo, Crocodile, Reuniclus. Kangaskhan kind of sets up with Power Up Punch. And I guess SD Sneasel would kind of count, but a lot of his setup is kind of... He does have some reliable setup mons, but most of his mons aren't very reliable setup sweepers, and most of that is just like autotomized setup. It's not like SD or something that's gonna set up and immediately apply offensive pressure. And breakers are kind of even worse than that. It's pretty much just Kangaskhan and maybe possibly Crocodile and Heliolisk, but those are more like cleaners than breakers. Overall bulk is easily a 5 out of 5 as everything on this team has very good bulk to it apart from like Heliolisk, and Sneasel. The speed tiers are also they're decent. They could be better. The fastest mon is Sneasel, which isn't the most reliable one to have as your fastest. It's not always coming. But from there, it's kind of solid before, like below that 115 mark, I think. So he has an overall score of 30 out of 41 and a rating of 7 out of 10. Yeah, overall, very bulky team. The offense of this team is a little bit weaker, but it's definitely there. And yeah, moving on to number 8.
Okay, number 8 is Az. So this team, in many ways, is kind of the opposite of Apic's team. It is an offensive powerhouse. So with that, its offensive synergy is a 5 out of 5, with threats like Urshifu, Volcarona, Zapdos, Greninja, Tyrantrum, Diggersby. He just has so many different ways to really, really hurt your team and keep on the pressure. They cover each other type-wise really well, being able to run a variety of different type of offensive stab to really exploit a weakness in your team. Defensive synergy, we gave a 3 out of 5. So his defensive core is basically Slowbro, Amoonguss, and sometimes Ferroseed. And while those are very, very strong, solid mons, and even Zapdos sometimes, they can be exploited if you have the right type of mon to go after them. The fact that both Amoonguss and Ferroseed are fire weak can make it quite scary. This team in general is pretty fire weak, other than Slowbro. So if Slowbro gets taken out too early, the rest of the defense can kind of crumble. Slowbro is really, it's like the main thing that keeps the defense from being anything worse than slightly above average. Hazards, we gave it 2 out of 3. With Tyrantrum, Diggersby, and Ferroseed, they're all, and Greninja, they're all good and pretty reliable hazard setters. Greninja, you will be wanting to run U-turn a lot, which kind of can limit your how many move slots you have for setting up spikes or T-spikes, but it's definitely an option. And Ferroseed is a great hazard setter as well. And Swirlix can set up sticky webs if he needs to bring sticky webs 1 week. So decent options, not the best, but they work. 2 out of 3. Removal, we gave a 1 out of 3. His only removal is Zapdos, right?
Yeah.
So
Colossal.
I think Volcarona also gets defog, but it's not a good defog.
Wait.
I think it's only
Yo, defog Volcarona, dude. Don't you know?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I completely forgot about defog Volcarona,
Yeah,
which actually could work because it is a pretty bulky mon. And heavy duty boots is the best item in the game. But yes, so really he's barely going to be running a removal Volcarona, and so a lot of the pressure will be put on Zapdos when it comes to removing hazards. Utility, 3 out of 5. He has great U-turn options. He has a great regenerator core. He has an Intimidator with Granbull and a Heal Beller with Granbull. Lacking knockoff options for the most part, but he does it. Generally, it's not that big of a deal for him. So hazards, utilities, pretty solid, nothing too crazy, but the team definitely kind of helps each other survive longer than maybe it should. Setup is a 4 out of 5. Volcarona itself makes it a 4 out of 5, but then you have threats like Tyrantrum, Dragon Dance, Urshifu with Bulk Up, and setups, Mega Slowbro, are all really great options to set up. I'm not bitter at all about the game that I just played against him. Not bitter at all. Set up Slowbro, whatever, fine. Breakers are fantastic. Wicked Blow is probably the single best offensive move in the game. Being able to land crits on everything is awesome. Offensive Zapdos is absolutely terrifying. Hitting, if it can land its Hurricanes, which apparently it can every time against my team, but whatever. I'm not complaining. Not complaining at all. Is a great option. And then Tyrantrum and Diggersby are also fantastic breakers. So we gave that a 5 out of 5. Overall bulk, 4 out of 5. Again, pretty solid bulk. Do they synergize with each other perfectly? No, but they definitely do the job. Speed tiers are 3 out of 5. High end speed is a little lacking, but Greninja kind of patches that a little bit. But he has Zapdos and Volcarona for the base 100 and Urshifu. So, and then the middle speed tiers are pretty decent as well. Overall, we gave it a 30 out of 41 with a rating of 7 out of 10. It's a great team, a little weak defensively, but if you can't break Mega Slowbro, you're still going to struggle. So, yeah. Or if you miss every Hurricane, you're going to struggle.
Missing Hurricanes is just a lack of skill. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
All right, my turn.
Not bad.
And since I've gone, I've met a girl, got married, and had a kid. So I finally up again. Talk about Sun's team. And holy shit, Metacham and Weavile together is really scary offensively. Along with like a couple others like Nidoqueen, Primarina, and like the offense, the synergy overall of the team is actually really good. Defensive wise, Corviknight, Rotom Heat, Nidoqueen, Primarina, Delmise, even Orbeetle. Like all these mons synergize quite well together. For the overall bulk, though, I'd say some of his walls can get worn down. Like Rotom Heat, Nidoqueen, Primarina, Mudstale, they don't have ways of recovering HP besides leftovers. So this team could have greatly benefited from, say, like a Wish Passer. So I don't know, maybe like Sharpedo wasn't necessary because you already had Weavile and Primarina. Or maybe Dodrio wasn't completely necessary, so maybe like a good Wish Passer could have greatly helped the overall bulk of the team, but the team synergizes really well. Hazard-wise, it's really solid. Nidoqueen's a great hazard setter. Mudsdale can set hazards for free, basically. And Orbeetle is also one of the like really good web setters. It feels like it can get webs easily. You turn out and do a lot of other kind of like utility-based things. Removal-wise, it's also really solid. Corviknight is one of the best defoggers. Rotom Heat is basically like a really good defogger because it can always run it. And so overall, like defogging-wise, it's really solid. Delmise is also a great spinner as well. Utility, he has a lot of like U-turning capabilities. U-turning and volt switching with Rotom Heat, Corviknight, Orbeetle, and whatnot. And that can lead into some of his like amazing breakers, like Metacham by itself is an amazing breaker. Nidoqueen can break as well with Life Orb. And Weavile and Specs Primarina are also just great. Setup wise, it's okay. Like it's not amazing, but it's not bad by no means. Because he's got Corviknight, like the body press set or a bulk up set. Metacham can run bulk up, Rotom Heat, Nasty Plot. Weavile can sword stance, but I don't think sword stance is super good on it just because it's not bulky enough to really get it off safely. Marina can run Calm Mind. Mudsdale gets also more body press. Orbeetle gets more body press. The thing with his setup is a lot of it is a body press kind of setup. which is a bit odd, I'd say. So that's why we gave it a 3.5 instead of like something higher. Breakers wise, I mentioned he's got some really good breakers. Overall bulk, I've mentioned he could have benefited from a wish passer greatly. The speed tiers of the team are quite solid because you have Weavile, their super fast mod, which is really good. And then you have, say, like Dodrio / Sharpedo. Sharpedo kind of helps with speed tiers a bit. Dodrio, I guess, is there for speed tiers, which also helps. Orbeetle's webs are amazing for speed tiers on the team. Metacham under webs support is a truly terrifying threat because if you don't have a, say, dedicated bulky sidekick and you have something else to kind of switch in, take a hit, and force it out because of its high speed, the webs kind of cuts that out now. And it's much harder to revenge kill Metacham with if you don't outspeed it as well. Something's taking a giant hit. So overall, like the team is really solid. It's a top 7 team. Nitty gritty wise, it's actually tied with 6th place. So it's definitely way up there. There's not much that separates it from like a top team. It just came down to being very nitty gritty and realizing maybe Sharpedo and Dodrio weren't super necessary, and maybe Needle Queen and Mudsdale on the same team were a bit odd. But overall, the team just synergizes with itself really well. On to our favorite guy.
Okay, so number 6, Ishiku. So this is a very, very solid team in almost every category. His offensive synergy is 3.5 out of 5. It's kind of slightly above average. I think the main thing that hurts it is probably the fact that it kind of struggles versus fairies. And well, Chomp and Hydreigon hit a lot of the same mons. They don't synergize that well offensively and kind of takes away from the overall offensive synergy of the team. But the team still works pretty well. Like, it's definitely slightly above average in terms of offensive synergy. Defensive synergy wise, it's pretty insane. Slowbro, Heatran, Chestnut, even Weezing, all of them synergize extremely well, and they do support Chomp, Hydreigon. Um, I guess Slurpuff, Swallow, all of his offensive mons are backed up very nicely by his defensive mons. Though once Heatran dies, his team is very weak to fairies and ice types. So, and Heatran could probably benefit from a Wish Passer that's a little bit more reliable than Slurpuff, but it definitely works. Hazards are a 3 out of 3 because he has every hazard in the game, and all of his hazard setters are extremely reliable. Removal is a 1 out of 3 because removal's pretty bad. He has Hydreigon, Swallow, Rotom, and I think that's it. Unless I'm missing something. But they're all offensive mons and probably won't run defog. Rotom might, but Hydreigon and Swallow likely won't. And this team is kind of weak versus hazard stack as a result of that, but still very solid. Utilities 4 out of 5. He has good taunt users. He doesn't really have a knockoff user, but he does have great momentum. Slowbro, Hydreigon, Swallow, Rotom. Well, it's pretty good. Pretty good. He also has just in general pretty good utility with solid taunt plus the solid momentum he has kind of gives him a 4 out of 5 in utility. The setup is a 5 out of 5. Mega Chomp had Swords Dance before, now it has Skill Shot. He has Slowbro with Nasty Plot, Calm Mind, Hydreigon, Slurpuff. You always have to pray for the Belly Drum set. And speaking of that, Chestnut can also Belly Drum, but it also gets Bulk Up. Rotom with Nasty Plot, and then Durant might do like a Clone Claws thing. In terms of breakers, he has very solid breakers. A lot of his setup mons kind of double as breakers is the thing, so it's kind of about as solid, though they function better as like setup mons or cleaners than they do as breakers. But they still do get the job done, which is why he has a 4. And speed tiers are overall bulk is a 4 out of 5. His team is pretty bulky, like just in general. The only frail mons on his team really are like Durant and Swallow. Everything else can either invest in bulk and be pretty bulky or just bulky by itself. And speed tiers are a 4 out of 5. Because, well, one, he has webs, which already makes them far better. And Swallow to, I think, Swallow to Durant, down to, like, Hydreigon. Yeah, there are very few gaps, and webs kind of patch up any issue that he might have with speed otherwise, and then, well, Durant is so fast, apparently. So, overall score is 32.5 out of 41, and rating is an 8 out of 10. The team is extremely solid. The double dragon thing kind of lets it down if Heatran dies, but apart from that, it's a very good team, deserving of a 6th spot. So, moving on to the next team.
So this is where the nepotism begins.
Yeah.
With Coded at 5. So we'll just get started. So offensive synergy, we gave a 4.5 out of 5. We like Coded's team a lot. The combination of Melmetal with Latios and Togekiss and Cinderace and Manaphy is great. Also, his lower tier mons also provide quite a bit of a threat offensively with Rotom, Frost, Golurk, and even Choke. And Tyranitar paired with Latios and Togekiss and Cinderace as well is also a great combination offensively. Coded.
What?
I'm sorry, I got distracted. I apologize. Defensive synergy is we gave a 4 out of 5. Porygon 2 is a fantastic mon. It is probably the best trick room setter in the game. It just does so much defensively. Togekiss and Latios pair very, very well defensively with Melmetal and Tyranitar. Rotom Frost is a great defensive pivot, actually. That can is a very interesting ice resist. And Vileplume with probably one of the best moves in the game. And Strength Sap can put in a lot of work as a defensive option. And it's not as passive as you would think. Hazards, we gave a 1 out of 3. His hazard setters are basically just Golurk and Tyranitar. Both of those mons, you will very rarely actually want to run rocks with them because they can do other things. Golurk, you're going to be wanting, you can run it in so many different ways, but one of the ways that you generally don't want to run it is defensive with stealth rocks or anything like that. I mean, Tyranitar as well. It's a better defensive option, but normally there might not be room for stealth rocks on its sets. Removal, we gave it 2 out of 3. Togekiss, Latios, Cinderace, Rotom Frost are all pretty good removal options. None of them are fantastic, but they can get the job done. Utility, we gave a 4 out of 5. Porygon 2 with Teleport, Cinderace with U-Turn, Manaphy with U-Turn and Flip Turn, Rotom Frost with Volt Switch, Golurk being able to run Trick, Vileplume with Strength Sap. There's just a lot of different ways that he can use the team. Togekiss is a good cleric as well. That there's a lot of different ways you can use each of his mons in different ways each week to help each other out. Setup, we gave a 5 out of 5 with Pokemon like Latios and Togekiss and Cinderace and T-Tar and Manaphy, which is literally set up the Mon, Tailglow the Mon. His setup options are pretty fantastic. Breakers, I mean, he can even run Sword Stand Fobplume if he really wants to. Breakers are also fantastic. Melmetal is one of the best breakers in the game, paired with Latios, also another fantastic Pokemon. They can really rip holes in a lot of different teams. Overall bulk, we gave a 4 out of 5. While not many Pokemon are like designated tanks, they're very, very bulky, very, very fat, and they can do a lot of different things. The one thing about his bulk is it is a bit knockoff weak. Porygon 2 and Machoke, and Machoke don't do as well after they've been knocked off. Same thing with Rotom Frost because it loses its heavy duty boots, which you'll be running about 95% of the time. Speed tiers, we gave a 4 out of 5 as well. Great high end speed with Cinderace and Latios. He has Trick Room options with Melmetal and Porygon 2. He has a base 100 with Manaphy, so he covers most of his important speed tiers really well. Overall, we gave it a 33.5 out of 41, and we have now entered the realm of giving most of these teams a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. So.
I came back from the un-American practice of filing my taxes. Does that sound wrong?
Dude,
it's all right.
Still making Jake feel like shit after every time he finishes talking?
I think that's my goal. Yeah, I think I dedicated that to being my goal. All right, now we're on to the 4 Bananas team, and obviously when you're in the top 4, like the team is really good. So I guess there's not much to say about like that's bad about it. I mean, offensive synergy, Aerodactyl, Aegislash, Kyurem are all amazing by themselves, and then they get supported by, say, like Blaziken and Webs and Zoroark as well. I mean, with Zoroark, you never know what you might be dealing with. That's a big problem and a really good thing for Banana's team. The defensive synergy is also quite solid. He has one of the best Pokemon to deal with bulky waters in Kyurem. Aegislash is also really good. Vaporeon's really fat. Weezing's a good mon. Serena can take a ton of damage and hits. Claydol has some bulk to it as well. And with hazards and removal, the team is like solid, very solid. He has really good rock setters. He has T-Spikes and Weezing. He has Webs. He has spikes in a Selgor. He has every setter, and each setter can easily set what it wants to set, what it sets out to do. As far as removal goes, I mean, he has both Serena and Claydol, which are pretty good Pokemon as far as Rapid Spin goes. He has Aerodactyl to defog as well, but you'd probably be relying more on Weezing for that. And Blaziken can also defog, but again, it's mostly going to be Weezing, Claydol, and Serena. And even with the other options as removal, they're pretty solid. Utility-wise, this team does have kind of a lot going for it. There's a lot of ways for this team to switch around between Blaziken, Selgor, Zoroark, Serena, Galvantula. Like the lower tiers all can basically swap around with each other. And he has Roar with Vaporeon, a couple neat things with Weezing, like its abilities. Claydol gets Teleport, which is really good for it. So there's a lot of things that this team can do pretty solidly well. And Kyurem's just a very like diverse mod that can do a lot of things, hit physically, especially set up in your face. And on to setup, This team has like D-Dance, Aerodactyl, Aegislash can set up, Kieran can set up. Claydol can set up, but I mean, it's probably not going to be running Calm Mind all too often. As Selgor gets the Throat Spray Unburden, which is a big threat if you don't prep for it. And Bladeskin and Zoroark get Swords Dance and Nasty Plot. And Zoroark is still like a big threat. Even though it's at the bottom of this team, it can come and completely surprise someone when it disguises itself as like, who knows, like a Wheezing and surprises with a strong Dark Pulse. The overall bulk of this team is a bit not as stellar as the synergy. As the synergy of it all is amazing, but he doesn't have the super fat, like he doesn't have the Blissey or the Steelix with the giant base defenses. Like, he does have Aegislash, but that's not the type of wall that you're looking at. He doesn't have the super fat wall. Maybe Vaporeon with the Wish support, but everything else is synergizes well together, but isn't the dedicated defensive tank to take any kind of punishment. Breakers, the team has very solid breakers. Aegislash, Aerodactyl can break, Kieran can break, Blaziken can break, and Specs Zora can count as a breaker. I'd be a situational one. For the speed tiers of the team, overall, the speed tiers are really solid. There is a massive speed gap between Selgor and Galvantula, but that one doesn't affect it too much as he does have two incredibly fast Pokemon that are going to outspeed the majority of other people's teams. And then he also has Webs, which supports the rest of his team amazingly well. And the speed tiers below Galvantula are great. Like, there's no problem with them at all. So overall, we gave the team a 34.5 out of 41. So you're getting like really close to those like perfect scores. And the separation between the teams are now like only a single point or like half a point because the teams are all like really good at this point. So what separates this team and like number one is like a point and a half, maybe. It's barely anything. This is a pretty solid team. And now we're going to cover our least favorite person in the entire world's team.
Yeah, moving on to DJColdCut. This team might be second worst only to Rolenti.
Yeah, no doubt.
So this team has very good offensive and defensive synergy and a lot of momentum. The offensive synergy, like he has Torrenti, Garchomp, Finny. Basically everything on this team is offensive to a degree. Nothing's really passive, and he has a lot of momentum to get in whatever can't pivot, which is basically just Chomp and I guess Simisear. Uh, the defensive synergy is also there in the same regard as like the offensive synergy. Again, everything just kind of works well together. His defense, Tapu Fini, Magnezone, Torrenti kind of works sometimes as a bulky pivot. Silvally, Decidueye, all of them synergize very well, and they come in on they pivot into each other as well. We gave the hazards a 2 out of 3 because he only has rocks on his team, but his rock setters are solid. I believe. Oh no, he also has T specs. Yeah, but so the removal is just insane. Torrenti, Finny, Silvally, Decidueye, all of them are very good removers. We gave the utility a 5 out of 5 because this team can kind of do whatever it wants. He has knockoff users, he has taunt users. The entire team is pretty much momentum. Just overall, it can do, basically whatever it wants to do. So, setup is a 5 out of 5, as every mon on the team gets set up, literally from Torrenti even to Audino. The breaking we made that a 2 out of 5 because while a lot of his mons can break, they're more so cleaners, but they could still work sort of as effective breakers. Just they're likely going to be cleaning up late game instead of like staying in and just trying to bust through some walls or whatever. So overall bulk is a 4 out of 5 because everything on this team is bulky except like Passimian and Mega Beedrill. And yeah, it's just kind of it's all supported very well. Speed tiers are 5 out of 5 because there are very, very few gaps, if any, literally all from Torrentee to his slowest mon, or from Mega Beedrill, I guess, to his slowest mon. And yeah, overall, we gave this a 35 out of 41 rating and 9 out of 10. Just overall, this is one of the best teams we've seen so far. Insane momentum, it also insane utility, and just plenty of setup options. So, moving on to number 2.
The third worst team.
Yeah.
My notes say something along the lines of LandTurtle is a really cool and sexy guy. This was said by both Donald Trump and Barack Obama. So
It's true. I was there.
you know he's bringing the heat because he's so sexy. So anyways, LandTurtle's team, it is the second best team. Clearly, it does a lot of things really, really well. Offensive synergy, we gave a 4 out of 5. Combination of Dragapult and Mega Gardevoir is absolutely insane. And then you combo that with Darmanitan, Copperajah, Rotom Wash, even Donphan and Crobat can be offensive options with Superior as well. He has a lot of flexibility, but he also has a couple mons that are really good at doing one job, and you have to prep super, super hard for it. The combination of specifically of Darmanitan and Mega Gardevoir is incredibly terrifying. Defensive synergy, we also gave a 4 out of 5. So defensively, you have Umbreon, which is a great defensive mon, but it can be a bit passive sometimes. Luckily, it does get foul play, so any form of physical setup options it can pretty much handle pretty effectively. Rotom Wash is also a great defensive mon coupled with Crobat and Donphan. I would say generally he will be in Miltank is a great option as well with 3 amazing abilities, 2 of them that can really help it defensively. I think one of the main issues that he might run into every once in a while is not having fantastic special bulk, but he can patch that up by just running special Umbreon 90% of the time and Rotom Wash that can be specially defensive as well. Hazards, we gave it 2 out of 3. We got Donphan, which is one of the best stealth rockers in the game. There's a comment that said AV Copperajah, and that is very, very true. Joe Biden is a big fan of AV Copperajah. Just thought you should know. But thank you for reminding me about AV. I kind of forget it exists sometimes, which I shouldn't. Hazard setting is basically Donphan and Copperajah and Miltank, and they're all pretty reliable hazard setters. He's probably never gonna run Stealth Rocks on Copperajah, but Donphan and Miltank are pretty amazing. It is a bummer that he doesn't have T-Spikes or Spikes. So we had to give that a 2 out of 3, but they are really consistent Stealth Rockers. Removal, we gave a 3 out of 3 because Crobat and Donphan are 2 of the best removers in the game. And then you also get Superior as well. That is a great defogger. And Rotom Wash is also a fantastic defogger. So he has some really high tier defog and even rapid spin options. Setup, we gave a 5 out of 5. I mean, how many mons can afford to Gardevoir setup or even a Rotom Wash setup? Rotom Wash is clearly one of the best Rotoms. Part of that is because Hydro Pump is such an amazing move on it. You don't even want to let Superior fire off multiple leaf storms, or Copper to set up in a myriad of ways in which it can. Dragapult with Dragon Dance is also terrifying. I haven't talked about Dragapult a lot, but mostly because everyone knows how good it is and it's borderline ban worthy because of just how flexible it is. Breakers is also 5 out of 5. You can mostly attribute that to freaking Darmanitan. Sheer Force Flare Blitz is absolutely terrifying, and it does so much work. Copperage is actually a pretty huge threat as a breaker, and Gardevoir doesn't even need a Calm Mind to absolutely take lives. And then overall bulk, gave a 4 out of 5. Again, Umbreon's kind of the core of the bulk, but most of the other defensive mons can support it very, very well. You can't even Toxic Stall it because both Embryon and Miltank can end up running Heal Bell. Speed tiers are 5 out of 5. Dragapult is fantastic speed-wise, and then he was able to couple that with Crobat, so he doesn't even have a huge gap between Dragapult and the next slowest mon, and combo that with Superior and with Gardevoir. It's basically perfect speed tiers. Overall, we gave this team a 36 out of 41, another 9 out of 10. There are very, very few flaws with the team. It just mostly in terms of very great offensive synergy and very great defensive synergy, but it's not perfect. But it's a great team.
Yeah, I get to talk about Hater, and we're finally almost done.
Did you make it all the way around the world by the time that I finished that one?
No, but I left something in the comments.
But you found a cure for COVID-19.
Yeah.
There we go. I was waiting for the smartass comment, and
I did it in a smartass way. So
I love it. Absolutely hilarious.
For Hater's team, everyone needs a gimmick. For Hater's team, this is like the best team we decided on. Though points wise, it is tied with second place, but I didn't want to be number one because that would be kind of weird. So I decided to bless Hater with that kind of responsibility, the crown. Now he has to win every game or else he'll look really dumb. So now for offensive synergy.
Anyone top 3 who lost just sucks ass.
Yeah. Pretty much. Wait, no, let's not do that. Okay. For offensive synergy, Gallade and Gengar alone would make this team like perfect because Gengar covers everything Gallade doesn't actually want to fight, bulky psychics and fairy types, but it still beats them. And when you add Volcanion and Haxorus along with it, and even Celebi as offensive pressure, the team's actually quite amazing offensive synergy-wise. It's actually kind of insane. Defensive synergy-wise, the team is definitely like very bulky, but the synergy isn't perfect. Besides Volcanion, the team is quite kind of weak to fire. Volcanion's an amazing Pokemon to deal with. Fire types though, so it's not too big of a deal. But besides Volcanion, I guess Haxorus, but Haxorus is not going to appreciate taking too many hits from fire types. Though the rest of his team is quite bulky and can handle some pressure though. Hazard-wise and removal-wise, the team is kind of solid. So he also has only 3 rock setters, but the rock setters are Blissey, Steelix, and Celebi, and they can and Pinsir, my bad. And they can pretty easily get rocks up safely for their team, though it doesn't have any other type of spikes or T-spikes or anything like that. So the team could have benefited from that, but it didn't. Removal-wise, it's also pretty solid. Mandibuzz is probably just the best defogger. Boots defog Mandibuzz. You also have defog Comfey, defog Volcanion. So it's not flawless removal, but it's also not bad. It's still there, and it's still pretty solid. Utility-wise, the team is quite good. You have a lot of like U-turners. You have a very good knockoff user in like Gallade and Mandibuzz. You have good just like U-turn and bolt switch capabilities on this team. It feels like a lot of the members of this team can switch around to benefit Gallade a lot and put it in a good position. Blissey gets teleport as well. And again, like some pretty good taunt users on the team to help out. Celebi has a lot of like secret kind of utility it can run. Setup wise, the team's kind of insane. You know, Gallade, of course, Gengar can set up, Comfy with Calm Mind, Axorus with like either Swords Dance Scale Shot as a really good cleaner, or just like a setup kind of Dragon Dance Demon mid match. Bellaby also gets some good setup as well, and even Pinsir can do Swords Dance, or Steelix skip with like Iron Defense Body Press as well, another one of those. So overall, like the setup is kind of insane here. Breakers wise, also just insane. Gallade, Specs Gengar, Volcanion, Haxorus. Those four again only need to be mentioned because they're just really good at what they do, and like offensive synergy wise, they're perfect together. Breaker wise, they're great together. The overall bulk, it's definitely there on the team. The bulk is better than the synergy here because the team can struggle against a fire type. They like a fire type that can hit Volcanion hard. But the bulk of the team is really good. I mean, you have Mandibuzz, you have Comfey, then you have Steelix, Celebi, and Blissey. So the bulk is kind of incredible. And lastly, speed tier wise, it's solid. You know, you have Jolteon to Mega Gallade and Gengar to his base like 100 Celebi and Axorus. There's no big gap in speed tier anywhere. It's not like crazy, but it's also just really solid. And the team is just really solid, and it's number one. Thing with this season that which is different from last season is last season there was two teams that were quite obviously above the rest, but trying to find a perfect team was a lot harder this time around as there was just a lot of very good teams. The difference between number 1 and number 7 was like 3 points that could have been given anywhere. So it was a very nitty gritty process of trying to find the top team in general. And overall, that's looks like we're finally done. I get to finally go to sleep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you to everybody who watched. Though I'm pretty sure most of you probably just skipped ahead to wherever your team was.
Yep.
But yeah, any of you that watched all the way through, thank you for watching. And remember that these were pretty much our opinions. Like PRs don't really mean anything. We just kind of did this so that like you guys would have some idea of like I guess how your team might stack up versus like other teams. So yeah, don't take anything like that personally. I mean, I'm sure like King Nothing has some kind of chance of like beating Hyder, but
Yeah, this is only opinion based essentially, and it doesn't mean anything about how you can win or what or lose. There's going to be bad teams
Yep.
that beat really good teams, and then we can all point at Hater as he loses to Hacks and say it's all about skill, and that would be really funny. I'm going to get a good laugh out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll probably see you in another video, but for now, this should be all for the KBL Season 3 Power Rankings.
Bye.